Now on Monday, members of Parliament will return prematurely to Canberra, where the Senate will debate a bill to reinstate the controversial Building and Construction Commission. The government and crossbench senators have been on a collision course over the watchdog, raising the spectre of a double dissolution election.
Now, Clive Palmer is also in the government's sights over the collapse of Queensland Nickel, denying allegations that he siphoned money out of the business for his own political gain. Let's get more on this and the other top stories of the week. We're joined by Alex Dorr from the New South Wales Young Liberals and Penny Parker from the New South Wales Young Labor. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Let's start with the issue of Clive Palmer. We saw a very emotional local member in Townsville yesterday as Michaelia Cash was essentially announcing that they would have a liquidator and look into the affairs of Clive Palmer, whether in fact he did take that money out. He has denied it. Is this the right course of action by the government to help support those workers?
Oh, look, I have to say I was very relieved to see the announcement from Senator Cash yesterday. But I think the important point to make on this issue is that the Australian Labor Party and Bill Shorten's team has been standing with Queensland nickel workers from the very, very beginning. And the Liberal Party has been brought kicking and screaming essentially to make the announcement that they made yesterday. So I do think it's the right decision, but I think it's a bit rich for Michaelia Cash to be touting herself as a supporter of workers when her government's entire political pitch to date has been attacking the rights of workers.
Is that fair, Alex?
Well, what we've seen this week is the coalition government standing up for truckies. We've stood up for workers this week, and we've stood up for them in all different facets, and we're standing up for them, and Malcolm Turnbull is standing up for them with the Building Commission and against union corruption. But, I think this Clive Palmer saga is a really sorry one because, hundreds of people now are losing their jobs. So it is a really sad situation for them and their families. And I think, that Clive Palmer does have questions to answer here, and whether he was acting as a shadow director as has been alleged or he wasn't, there's no doubt that his business management is in question. Nickel is at a 12-year low, nickel prices, so there is a global market factor here as well, but whether that would have impacted Queensland Nickel in the way that it has without the sort of management that we've seen is a separate question. I do think that the government is right to put those questions to Clive Palmer, given his role in this company.
Well, it does seem that there is, of course, a consensus that support should be provided to those workers, particularly where their entitlements are under threat. What, though, of Clive Palmer? He is about to be investigated, obviously, in terms of this, but what of his future? He is a member of Parliament as well at this point.
That's right, and, I don't think there's any debate about whether or not the Labor Party has been a particular fan of Clive Palmer. I'd be obviously glad to see him go. I think his actions have been absolutely disgraceful in this debacle, and I think he should be held to account, and I think the people at the next election will probably make that decision, and I hope that they do.
Alex, let's turn our attention to what's going on in Parliament. They're all returning next week, ostensibly, I guess, to debate this bill over the reinstatement of the Building and Construction Commission. Does it all hang on this as far as the election is concerned, in your view?
Well, from our perspective, just from an organisational perspective, in the Young Liberals, we're ready to go to an election whenever. And if it's a July election, then we'll fight for every vote. And I think that voters will, decide in favour of Malcolm Turnbull. But I think that the Labor Party really has a significant question to answer here, which is, are they going to stand up against union corruption? Do they want to fight an election on union corruption? Because, the coalition is ready to do so. I think that, this week, you're right, this coming week is going to be a really critical one in determining whether that's the case. We spoke about Clive Palmer. Well, Clive Palmer's sitting on 2%, according to the polls in his electorate. So our friends in the Queensland Young Liberal Nationals will be fighting there for every vote as well. So in terms of we're ready for an election, well, we are. And I think that Malcolm Turnbull has the guts to go through with this and to say to the Labor Party, if you're not going to stand up and you're not going to stand here after the Royal Commission and reinstate this Building Commission, then we're going to go all the way.
Well, Penny, in terms of our expectations, and they are that, there will be a debate happening. Senator Penny Wong has said that they won't delay any debate in Parliament when this bill is put forward. What, though, if we come to a situation whereby the bill gets passed? What should we make of that sort of situation when we've had so much being said about an early election in July.
Well, I do think that's a very, very unlikely scenario. I do think the most likely scenario is that we will go to an election on July 2nd. The Labor Party has been very clear about the fact that we will vote down this bill because it is a very bad bill. You know, you just need to look at what happened last time the ABCC under the Howard government was in operation. We saw the number of deaths on construction sites increase dramatically. Productivity in the construction sector was below the average of other sectors in the economy. It's bad policy. We're prepared to vote it down, and we're also prepared to go to an election about issues that really matter to a lot of Australians, and particularly young Australians, things like how do we fund our schools properly, things like passing marriage equality, which I know a lot of young people deeply, deeply care about and feel absolutely betrayed by the Malcolm Turnbull government failure to act on that issue. We are definitely ready to go to an election. And if the Liberals want an election on industrial relations, Bill Shorten and the Labor movement are ready. And just as we saw in 2007, Australians really, really care about their rights at work, and we will fight for every vote on that issue.
Alex, do you have any concerns that perhaps the Labor Party has seized the agenda here? And particularly a lot of talk about wealth inequality in recent weeks, given the various elements that have made the news. Is there a concern within the party that Malcolm Turnbull is not getting the message out? It is confused, and they're behind the ball as far as the agenda setting is concerned.
Well, I mean, I'll agree with you on one point, which is Labor have set the agenda, and their agenda is an agenda of higher taxes. And Bill Shorten at this election is promising to hike taxes in 4 different ways. He wants to increase capital gains tax. He wants to increase superannuation, so that's a tax on savings. He wants to increase the tax on negative gearing by restricting it, and he wants to reintroduce the carbon tax. So, I mean, they've set the agenda, but I think the agenda that they've set, I think the agenda that they've set is a pretty clear one, which is I don't think the average Joe, watching this program wants to pay more tax, and I don't think that the average person watching this program thinks that governments are spending too little.
Yet the Treasurer has indicated that there will be some form of tax hike. We don't know exactly how. May well be as far as superannuation is concerned for the higher income earners.
Well, I mean, that's right. We'll see when the budget comes out, and it'll be released in a few weeks. But I think fundamentally the choice will be really clear, and it's been clear at the last election. And the fact is, the Labor Party have not changed their position. And at the last election, the Labor Party went to the election promising to increase taxes and retain taxes, and the coalition went to the election saying we're going to cut taxes and we're going to reduce them wherever we can. And so that's been, they abolished the mining tax, they abolished the carbon tax, and if the Labor Party want that to be the battleground for this election, and by the looks of it they do, then I think that Australians will make a very clear choice on election day.
What though of the concerns, particularly from Moody's, about Australia's credit rating, that we might face a drop from AAA credit rating if we don't address our budget issues and find more revenue?
Well, I think tax policy is probably the most clearly, it's an issue that illustrates the difference between both parties most clearly. On the one hand, on the Labor side, you have a focus on taxing multinationals and ending negative gearing. And on the Liberal side, you have, the Treasurer refusing to rule out increasing income tax and putting the burden back on mums and dads of Australia. And I think there couldn't be two policies more different. And I'm glad to be advocating for the Labor side on tax policy, absolutely.
Penny, just a bit earlier there, you were talking about the issue of same-sex marriage and how it will feature perhaps in the upcoming election. Now, this week we've seen an interesting intervention by the Catholic Church, essentially having a go at some of our major corporations, certainly Telstra and also Qantas, for pushing that agenda of advocating a same-sex marriage. Is that appropriate in your view?
Well, I think it's an example of how divisive the debate around marriage equality is becoming as it gets drawn out. And the reason why it's being drawn out so long is because Malcolm Turnbull and his government have failed to take action on this really, really important issue that a lot of young Australians really, really care about. And like I said before, I think it's one of the biggest betrayals of the Turnbull government is his failure to legislate for marriage equality. And as the debate gets drawn out, you'll see some of these issues coming up more regularly.
Alex, what do you make of these allegations that the Catholic Church has been trying to pull strings in terms of the people who are promoting same-sex marriage in the community?
The Catholic Church has a position on this, and I think that they would argue that it's a theological underpinning to it. So I think that, when we sort of, a lot of this seems to be a lot of feigned surprise, like, the Catholic Church has this position on same-sex marriage. It's not a new position. I mean, we've known their position for quite a while, so I don't have a problem with the Catholic Church advocating for its position on this issue. I mean, they're entitled to do that.
Yet be putting pressure on corporations. Is that appropriate?
I mean, I think it's totally appropriate for them to exercise, their role in the political debate, and I think it's appropriate as well for individuals to do the same. I think for Telstra it's a good example, right? Where I think it's a lose-lose. I mean, if you enter the debate, it's one of those divisive issues, and should a corporation have a political view? Well, I mean, it's up to them if they want to, but I don't necessarily know if that is a great reflection on the company, or whether it's going to assist them in the long term.
All right, just before you two go, I did want to get your opinion. Everyone has an opinion on the current saga going on in Lebanon with the 60 Minutes crew and the Australian mother Sally Faulkner. Penny, what's your view of how this is likely to play out and the role that Channel 9 has played in this whole saga?
Yeah, look, I think it's just a really tragic situation for everyone involved, and I do hope that the focus of the media attention on the issue looking forward is on the children, because I think both children involved should be the centre of everyone's concern.
Are there concerns that it should be raised in terms of those allegations about 60 Minutes involvement?
Well, I mean, look, there's always the question of whether or not, journalists take part in the story. I mean, you should be reporting on the story, not taking part in it. But I do think, if I had to sum up my view on it, just think it's like, get them out. If we can get them back to Australia safely, then, we should do everything we possibly can to do that.
Alex Dorr, Penny Parker, great to have you both with us this morning. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much.